Yo, what's good, everybody? And today we are very excited to say that the Jets have finally completed basically the fundamentals of their coaching staff. They have just hired our new offensive coordinator, and he is coming from the Lions, Tanner Engstrand. This is extremely exciting, and it's a great hire, just to preface it, just because the Lions last year were such a high powered offense, but I'll get into the specifics. He has 20 years of coaching experience. He started as a graduate assistant at San Diego at the FCS level under Jim Harbaugh, though, his first year. Then he was the running backs coach, then the quarterbacks coach, and then the assistant head coach. Then he was brought into the Michigan system as an offensive analyst under Jim Harbaugh once again, who left San Diego in 2006. After that, he was the offensive coordinator of the DC Defenders under head coach Pep Hamilton at the time, who was the passing game coordinator for Michigan at the same time when Engstrand was there with Harbaugh. So a lot of pedigree early on to have taken in and soaked in, a lot of expertise that he must have learned from Harbaugh. He had mentioned in an interview Engstrand did that he basically soaked in all the knowledge about the West Coast offense at the time. And more recently, he had joined the Lions in 2020 as an offensive assistant, to then offensive quality control, to then tight ends coach and passing game coordinator. And last year, he was just the passing game coordinator, which this is bringing in a lot of what the passing game from the Lions, which was so good last year, such creative plays that they incorporated. And so that would you would assume that the plays you would bring to the Jets would be a mix of West Coast and the new school kind of motion offense that the Lions are running. So a good mix that we're gonna see here. A big deal. This is a big deal though, because even though he likely wasn't doing much play calling with the Lions, he was orchestrating a variety of creative and ingenious plays that blew away the NFL. And Dan Campbell said himself that he was very heavily involved in the minute details of different plays, such as with working with the tight ends, working with the backs, working with the receivers, working with the quarterbacks, a lot of different touch points. And again, utilizing plenty of motion and even some trickery to it. This is key, though, because last year the Jets with Todd Downing, calling all the plays middle of the year, he started incorporating some motion and some of that new gen strategy, but was still severely lacking. And these plays didn't particularly work very well for us. Maybe part of that was Rodgers, maybe part of that was the inexperience of Downing. And not to say Engstrand is very experienced, but the Lions were also the highest scoring offense in the NFL last year, so he had to gain something from that, especially to the level of involvement that Dan Campbell seems to say that he was part of. So I'm very excited about that, and I'm very excited about what he's going to bring to us. Of course, the only question mark being that he hasn't been a play caller before. But I'm sure he's going to have plenty of help, especially if we bring in some advisors or consultants that are more experienced. Todd Haley's name has been thrown around. Different guys who can just come in and be veteran advisors in the coaching staff. So can't wait to see what we do with that. Other hires that we made, minor hires, but to me give a major impact. We made a bunch of hires under Steve Wilks's now defensive coordinated staff. We made our DB's coach hire, Chris Harris, and we're following a lot of the similar trends of former players who are now well-regarded coaches. Chris Harris played, as a safety in the league for the Bears, the Panthers, the Lions, and the Jaguars. And he's been a coach for about the past 10, 12 years or something like that. But most recently, he was the defensive pass game coordinator and cornerbacks coach for the Titans, who the Titans had a top 2 secondary last year. They had one of the best, if not the best, passing defense in the NFL, at least during the regular season. Of course, it didn't result in very many wins, but their personnel wasn't also great to begin with. So with a secondary room that isn't the best, and I would argue the Jets have much more capable personnel when it comes to players in the secondary, and he did that with them. That makes me very excited about him coaching our DBs and being our defensive pass game coordinator. Because if he can bring that to the Jets, it's money, right? Because, like I said before, my worry about the Wilks and Glenn hires, my only question mark, the passing game. Because their successful seasons have not come with stellar pass defenses. Chris Harris is bringing the top, if not one of the top, passing defenses of the previous year, which is a big, big win, in my opinion. Because our big question mark was the passing game. It's not anymore. The other, one of the other minor hires on the defensive end, Aaron Curry. He was just recently, again, a former player. He's just recently the linebackers coach for the Steelers, interior linebackers coach rather, and now he comes in as our just standard linebackers coach. And I'm really excited about that hire because, the Steelers bring to their linebacker core or linebacker room generally, they usually have a lot of grit and toughness that they play with, which we need on the Jets. Absolutely. We need guys who are not just willing to be tacklers, but will tackle effectively, which Aaron Curry will certainly bring, and he'll show them how to play tough. Lastly, on that defensive end, we got our new defensive line coach, Eric Washington, who I was really, really surprised about, to be honest, that he's coming in to be our defensive line coach, because it's technically a step down of what he was doing last year. Last year, he was the defensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears, who picked it up after Eberflus got fired. And they were actually, at least from a defensive line perspective, of course, he oversaw the entire defense when he was with the Bears last year. From a defensive line perspective, they were rated top 5 in tackling. Are we seeing a trend here? We're seeing that we're not going to have some of these same problems, at least from a coaching perspective, that we had last year when it comes to where our defense was lacking. He's going to teach the defensive line how to be capable tacklers, especially when it comes to tackles for loss and preventing extra yards that we don't need to, which we absolutely 100% can benefit from. And he's got a lot of exciting experience surrounding him, which is why, once again, I'm very surprised he's becoming a defensive line coach for us. And it must have been Aaron Glenn's name and Steve Wilks' name had something to do with it, because before the Chicago Bears, before he was the defensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears, he was the assistant head coach and defensive line coach at the Buffalo Bills, which in 2023, still a really damn good team, man. They made deep playoff runs, and they were strong defensively. Definitely stronger defensively in 2023 than they were in 2024. Maybe that's just me speaking out of my ass, but I mean, an injury has played a role in that this year. But they were absolutely 100% very stout defensively. So yeah, super excited for him to come on, be our defensive line coach, and him having been, an assistant head coach and a defensive coordinator, and he can really hone in and key in on the defensive line for us. Super, super, super exciting, and I can't be happier with these hires. I think they're the right hires. So from a defensive end, we're completely set, man. And just remains to be seen who we're going to hire as our QB coach. We're retaining our wide receiver coach, I saw, which I think that will help Garrett Wilson feel more comfortable with our situation and having so much turnover. There have been rumors that Garrett Wilson, is going to request out. I don't think any of these are substantiated to any degree, but I think that he should definitely be very excited about what we're bringing as far as coaching, as far as bringing coaches in. The last hire, and this is a major hire, by the way, that I need to talk about, didn't talk about before, Chris Banjo. I mentioned in previous videos, was hired as our special teams coordinator. He was most recently the assistant special teams coach for the Broncos. The only thing that I have to report on that as far as stats-wise, they were top 6 in field goal percentage, and they were 100% percentage in extra points. That's good. And if he had anything to do with that, obviously it relies heavily on basically the kicker hitting their kicks. But of course, a lot more goes into it than meets the eye. And if he knows what makes a successful system as far as kicking field goals and kicking in general, that's a win for me. I mean, our kicking was god awful last year. So if he can play a role in, helping us turn it around, and I believe, he has a connection to Mike Westhoff, who might reportedly come on as kind of like a volunteer advisor for us next year. That would be a big help too, and consult with us in the offseason, see what he can bring, his expertise. Obviously he's retired primarily, but if he can come in as a volunteer advisor role, I'm all for that. And, I'm just liking just a lot of the youth movement that we have. A lot of guys who are seen as up-and-comers in the coaching sphere, and a lot of former players as well. Guys who have come up in good systems as far as their coaches when they were players in the NFL. And guys who will just bring a lot of knowledge from a bunch of different perspectives and all different angles is what I'm mainly excited about going into the next year when it comes to coaching. So let me know what you think about these hires, and let me know what you think about how your team is doing. If you want me to cover, I might even do this about the Cowboys, because I have a lot of thoughts about the Cowboys coaching situation right now and a lot of the hires that they're making for whatever reason. So if you want me to talk about your team's recent hires and do some research into how they can add value, how maybe this might have not been the right hire, let me know. The Saints situation is also just such a shit show. I might need to talk about that in a separate video. So let me know in the comments. Make sure you like the video. Also subscribe and follow me on all socials in the description below. And peace.